Now this might sound too good to be true, but you, my friend, are about to receive the most important improvisation lesson on the entire internet. See, if you have ever felt stuck on the old fretboard here, like your solos sound random, disconnected, like you're running scales with no deeper intention, this is about to be the most important lesson you've ever digested.
You really cracked some kind of code or something.
Because by the end of this video, you are going to have a complete understanding of how the greatest improvisers in history actually think about improvisation. You're going to understand 3 key principles. Number 1, voice leading is rule number 1. Number 2, you can only voice lead in the context of chord changes. Without chord changes, there's no voice leading. Number 3, it's ultimately the parameter of voice leading into the context of chord changes that unleashes the full capacity of your creative genius. So let's start with that rule number 1. Voice leading is everything. See, masterful improvisation is simply the ability to voice lead in real time. So what does this mean exactly? It means connecting one chord to the next with nearby, or in some cases, the same tones. For example, if I'm going to take a C major to F minor change, I can move by half step in common tones only, like so. These 2 notes of C moved up a half step to these 2 notes of F, and we have a very smooth voice leading transition. This is essentially the gravity of harmony. Harmony wants to do stuff. Voice leading is understanding what that stuff is. Now, where players get lost is they just overcomplicate the hell out of this, right? They're starting to do this on tunes like All the Things You Are when they haven't even done it through the simple 5-1 like I just did. Like, you want to just learn voice leading on 5-1 before you do any full-length tunes. You see that flawless voice leading on a 5, which in this case was a C, to a 1, which in this case was an F minor. And you just saw for yourself how much music I'm able to make with that very narrow parameter, right? Parameters being pure triadic voice leading, no notes outside of the triads allowed until you master just what I showed you here. Because if you can't do 5-1 with pure triadic voice leading and limitless creative rhythmic freedom, then when you add more chord changes, like on a tune like this, you're always just going to feel super uncomfortable. But you can use the 5-1 as the proxy to understand that comfortability in the context of playing chord changes. And then what you're doing is when you play a tune like Giant Steps, you're just going to normalize those chord changes in the same way that you normalize the 5-1. And that's practice, right? This is the mentality of mastery. Realizing the parameters are the guiding principle of all your practice. If you don't have parameters, what the hell are you practicing? Are you literally running scales? That would explain why your solos sound like you're running scales. So all practice needs to be done in the context of chord changes, because voice leading is rule number 1, and voice leading presupposes chord changes, hence the realization the parameters set you free. So as you can see, I've taken this little chord progression here, I've made it a parameter, and then I've begun the work of actually voice leading through this little progression using only triads. Now, you don't need to sound good when you're doing this. All you need to do is stay in the parameter. It's a whole mental focus trick. If you're chasing the idea of sounding good, you're focusing on the wrong thing, right? What you want to focus on is the movement from the first chord in the sequence to the second chord in the sequence to the third chord in the sequence. And what I've done here is I've created a pathway. I can see the pathway. The harmony that's moving through time in this progression is represented to my eyes by the way the fretboard looks when each chord changes. Now that can be infinitely complex in how you apply it to the fretboard, but look at this simplicity right here. Look what I've done. 2, 2. Now that's a very simple pathway. But a lot of people watching this, probably most of you, don't even know how to make music with a pathway that simple. Well, the trick is simply the rhythmic intention. So what we're accomplishing by making this really straightforward pathway with the open root position D flat, going to the closed root position C, going to the closed first inversion F minor. Like that's the pathway. Now within that, I can focus on the rhythm, and the rhythmic focus is going to give me the maximum potential within that pathway. The counterintuitive realization is that even though the pathway is really small, I'm unlikely to repeat myself because that small pathway allows me 100% focus on rhythm, and I've developed my rhythmic imagination. Right? I've developed my rhythmic imagination. How did I do that? By making these little parameters that I'm calling pathways, where I'm forcing myself to focus on the rhythm in order to make it interesting, right? Like you don't get it instantly. There's like a whole process that you go through, which is developing that rhythmic creativity. And look how it's done. It's done by making a really specific, well-defined parameter so that you don't have to think about the note choices, right? Because the note choices come as a natural result of the rhythmic intention, right? Melodic contour, rhythmic intention. You know what I'm saying, right? See, most players are seeking freedom, and they think that means,
oh, I can just play whatever I want. Better learn as many scales as humanly possible, so I have so many things to play all the time.
Classic story, right? But now you see the truth comes from restricting yourself within very specific parameters, because that's how you free your mind to focus on rhythm, which is where all of your creative leverage exists. And that goes back to, this is a process, right? But if you practice what I've shown you here for approximately 4 days, okay? If you just practice what I've showed you, and guess what? I actually have a free course that's going to guide you as you're practicing this. First link in the description, Intro to Fretboard Mastery. That's gonna get you playing those 5 ones and understanding the first level parameter of practice, which is voice leading from 5 to 1, and just mastering that across the entire fretboard. That's why it's called Intro to Fretboard Mastery. The whole concept is that you open up the entire visualization schematic of the fretboard, no longer in position playing. Now you're thinking about horizontal pathways, right? And just based on the feedback I get on that course, most of you guys have not thought about this visualization schematic. For example, playing F minor like this or something. Those are horizontal pathways that are fundamental, core to opening up the fretboard. So in Intro to Fretboard Mastery, you're going to learn voice leading on the fretboard using these horizontal pathways, and you're going to do it in the context of 5-1. And you're going to understand voice leading, aka fretboard reconfiguration. Every time the chord changes, the fretboard pathway also changes. And at a complete level of mastery, you're actually creating pathways along the fretboard according to chord changes in songs that you will play in performance. You see how we're reverse engineering flawless performance in this way? So if, say, practice form 1 were on the gig, you might practice something like this. Start very simple with well-defined pathways such as open root position D flat to a closed root position C major to a closed first inversion F minor Okay, good, I got my pathway mapped out. Now with that pathway in mind, I'm going to focus 100% of my attention on the melodic rhythms. So let's try that. Now, I've connected a lot of different pathways in practicing this over the years. And that's what you saw this developing into in this example. What did it start with though? It started with focusing on the very small pathway and being rigid about that, right? But there's always going to be that temptation to break away from that core pathway rigidity. See, this is the interesting thing about improvisational freedom. And I had a teacher who actually explained this point that I'm making right now really effectively. Remy Bolduc, huge shout out, he's on YouTube. Remy Bolduc said it's all about the jumping off point, right? It's all about starting somewhere. And I think the reason why that works so well is because then you just pick up on the rhythm. And you're already focused on the rhythm if your jumping off point is well defined. And so I'm showing you what a well defined jumping off point looks like, right? It's from here to here to here. And then the natural expansions of just seeing those shapes, right? On the D flat, for example, if I see this, I also see all this. Just from seeing this. You know what I mean? That's a big quantum leap that a lot of people never make in their lives, right? They don't realize it's like, okay, what's that first core jumping off point lead us to? You don't need to see all the way down the road here. You only need to see like 2 steps in front of you, and then the rhythm will actually guide you, right? Because if you're trying to force all these different pathways, you're missing the whole point. You're not thinking about the rhythm. If you're thinking about the rhythm, you won't force anything melodically. So if this lesson clicked for you, the Intro to Fretboard Mastery, the free course, it's going to be the best time investment you've made in probably 15 freaking years. So get that. First link in the description. And you can learn more about what I do once you get that, because I'll send you good emails. I'll send a bunch of extra free stuff. I don't have a newsletter. I have a daily email sequence. So get ready for that. I'm not messing around out here. I send value, 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 because I know what I'm showing people for free on YouTube and through my email list and all the free stuff I give away. I know what I'm showing you guys. It's like you're at the foot of Mount Everest. I'm showing you that you're at the foot of Mount Everest. I point to the top, I give you the tools, and then the question becomes, do you want my actual help to guide you to the top? Because I can. That's gonna take you way less time than trying to do it on your own. But to be fair, I've given you all the base level tools that you need to extrapolate. I already told you jazz standards are the keys to the kingdom. I've said that in 100 videos. Check out the V scale. That's your path to mastery. Just learn triadic voice leading on every tune in the V scale, and that's how you get to Mount Everest. Yeah, Mount Everest is like 16 men attain, tunes like that. And on the ascent to Mount Everest, you'll inevitably realize that the tunes are everything. Nothing else matters but the tunes. You don't need to know theory, you need to know tunes. And by knowing tunes, you understand how to write tunes. And the best way to learn tunes is to understand improvisational freedom within the tunes, hence the voice leading in real time concept. And you remember what I said at the beginning, this was going to be the most important improvisation lesson you've ever received, and I'm sure that it absolutely was. So I will see you on the emails, because you're gonna get Intro to Fretboard Mastery, first link in the description, and then we'll see if you're cut out for my program, okay? I only work with the best of the best of the best. You guys know my channel is the deepest niche of guitar mastery, with an emphasis on jazz mentality and improvisational freedom. To work directly with me is going to be the fastest way to get you to the top of Mount Everest, now that you know what the top of Mount Everest actually is.